He allowed his victim to write a last will and testament to her family, then taunted them with chilling phone calls.
Did you receive the letter today?
Yes.
Okay, so you know now that this is not a hoax call.
A traced phone line couldn't trap the abductor, but scientists would find a clue in the victim's last words. "17-year-old Shari Smith had her whole life before her. In 2 days, she would have the honor of singing the national anthem at her graduation from the Lexington High School. Then she would sail off on a cruise with her classmates.
She was kind of the cement that held our family together. She was always the happy one.
At 3:38 p.m. on May 31st, 1985, Shari arrived home from a graduation pool party. She stopped at the mailbox some 700 feet from her house. Her father was watching from his home office as she pulled in.
5 or 10 minutes had passed, and all of a sudden I was aware that Shari had not come to the house yet. So something just told me that something was wrong, and I ran through the house and into the garage and got in my car and cranked it up and drove to the mailbox.
Bob Smith found the door of his daughter's automobile open, the motor running, and Shari's purse on the seat.
I saw barefooted footprints going to the mailbox, but none coming back.
And he said, "Honey, I don't know how to tell you this, but Shari's car is at the end of the driveway running, and she's not in it." And I can remember now, I said, "Oh my God, not my Shari."
Panic-stricken, the couple called the Lexington County Sheriff's Office.
Near the mailbox on the ground was some mail, which indicated to us that she had gotten out of the car to pick up the mail and was probably abducted at that point.
If you find or spot anything out of the ordinary.
Lexington County Sheriff Jim Metz immediately organized the largest manhunt in South Carolina history.
We really didn't know whether Shari knew her abductor or not. We certainly had no reason to expect that she had run away or that she left on her own.
That whoever it is that has our daughter Shari, we want her back. We miss her. We love her. And please send her back home where she belongs.
All her parents could do was wait.
The Smith family was a very influential family in the community, and there was no reason that we could determine why she would be kidnapped other than maybe for ransom purposes. So we anticipated that the individuals responsible would make contact with the family.
The sheriff's suspicions proved right. 2 days after Shari had been abducted, the Smiths received a phone call. A man with a strangely distorted voice demanded to speak to Mrs. Smith. To prove the call was not a hoax, he described the black and yellow bathing suit Shari was wearing beneath her shorts and shirt.
He said he would release her. He said that she was fine, they were watching TV, she was eating a little bit, and but he was giving her lots of water, and she was doing great.
He made no ransom demand, but he told the Smiths that they would be receiving a letter in the morning.
My reaction was an individual who's got some sophistication in the crime he's committing. This is not the first time that he has engaged in a sex crime of some sort. Probably has been thinking about committing a crime like this for quite some time.
Agent Walker agreed that the best hope of finding Shari could come from the letter her abductor promised was coming.
We woke up the postmaster in Lexington on the weekend, went over to the post office and started looking through the mail.
And everybody put on plastic gloves, and we all sorted through the mail till we found the letter addressed to the Smiths.
Inside was a letter in Shari's handwriting. At the top of the first page was the heading, last will and testament. Shari Smith's abductor had allowed the teenager to write a 2-page letter to her family in which she told them how much she loved them.
I had a very helpless feeling come over me, but I was not without hope. I held out my hope to the end, but I was totally helpless. The word last will and testament just knocked me back, and I was totally helpless. I did not know what to do or what to say. And then the tough part was I had to show the letter to my wife.
Please don't ever let this ruin your lives, Shari's letter read. Just keep on living one day at a time for Jesus. Some good will come out of this. My thoughts will always be with and in you. In parentheses were the words, casket closed. Sheriff Metz immediately sent the letter to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Crime Lab, hoping forensic document examiner Mickey Dawson could find some clues.
I was looking for handprinting or handwriting. I was looking to see if I could find any trace evidence to send to hairs and fibers.
After the letter arrived, the abductor called the Smith family again.
Have you received the mail today?
Yes, I have.
Do you believe me now?
Well, I'm not really sure I believe you because I haven't had any word from Shari. And I need to know that Shari is well.
You'll know in 2 or 3 days.
Why 2 or 3 days?
Call the search off.
Later that same evening, he called once more, saying that Shari was alive and implied he would release her soon.
I want to tell you one other thing. Shari is now part of me. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, our souls are one now.
The call was traced to a public payphone at a drugstore in downtown Lexington. But in 1985, trap and trace required 15 minutes for authorities to trace the call and reach its location. The abductor remained on the phone for a very short time. 5 days after Shari's abduction, the kidnapper called again and spoke to both Shari's mother and her 21-year-old sister, Dawn.
Okay, 4:58 a.m. No, I'm sorry, hold on a minute. 3:10 a.m. Saturday, the 1st of June. She handwrote what you received. 4:58 a.m. Saturday, the 1st of June.
Okay, Saturday, the 1st of June, 4:58 a.m.
Became one soul.
Became one soul. What does that mean?
No questions now. Please, to Sheriff Metz, search no more. Blessings are near.
Do not kill my daughter, please. I mean,
We
please.
love and miss y'all. Get good
Let me-
rest tonight. Goodbye.
Wait a minute. He's gone, Mom.
The next day, he made another call.
Hello?
Listen carefully. Take Highway 378 west to Traffic Circle. Take Prosperity exit. Go 1.5 miles. Turn right at sign. Moose Lodge number 103. Go 1/4 mile. Turn left at white frame building. Go to backyard. 6 feet beyond. We're waiting. God chose us.
And I begged the police officers, I said, let me go with you. Let me go. I want to go with you to find Shari.
But investigators insisted on going alone. Shari's body was found in the backyard. On the body were the yellow top and white shorts she'd last been seen in. The autopsy revealed Shari had been dead for several days. Investigators believe that Shari's abductor inadvertently revealed when he killed her when he corrected himself about the time she wrote the letter. They believe Shari died at 4:58 on the morning of June 1st, 2 hours after she wrote the letter. If that were the case, Shari remained alive for only 12 hours after her abduction.
One line I'll never forget when she says, "casket closed." Can you imagine what was going through her mind knowing what she was going to face? She knew at that point that her body would be in a condition that the casket had to be closed.
Agent Walker believes the killer tried to buy time while the body was outside, diminishing the chances to recover crucial forensic evidence. The medical examiner found residue of duct tape on her face, suggesting that the cause of death was suffocation.
Her hair was substantially shorter. He had to cut the duct tape out of her hair to keep from leaving it behind. And that told me that he had some experience, at least, or some level of criminal sophistication.
Based on knowledge gained from past offenders of similar crimes, the FBI had this hypothesis.
The profile that we developed of him described a white male, prior married, unsuccessfully married, probably not currently married, mid to late 20s to maybe even as old as early 30s, who had a history of sex crimes.
The Signal Analysis Unit of the FBI Engineering Section told investigators that the voice distortion of the abductor's voice was accomplished by something called a variable speed control device.
We believed either through employment or through his technical education had some sort of background or experience in electronics.
Investigators believe the killer had everything planned out and was reading from a script clearly evident when he corrected himself about the time of Shari's letter.
4:58 a.m. No, I'm sorry, hold on.
As a final assault to the family, the killer called them on the night of Shari's funeral. It was a collect call.
He wanted to tell us just how he had murdered Shari, and he said, well, can you take it? Who could take it? But we didn't have a choice. We had to try to keep him on the line to find out where he was.
A few weeks later, the killer called again. This time, he no longer wanted to talk about Shari.
That's her little string of gold balls right there.
After the funeral of 17-year-old Shari Smith, her killer continued to taunt the family by phone, but he no longer had any interest in Shari.
Have you heard about Debra May Helmick?
No.
The 10-year-old? Helmick?
Richland County?
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay, listen carefully.
2 weeks after Shari Smith was kidnapped, Debra May Helmick was abducted in front of her parents' trailer in Richland County, 24 miles from the Smiths' home. Her father was inside, just 20 feet away. A neighbor saw someone pull up in a car, get out, and grab Debra before speeding off. Like Shari, Debra was a pretty blue-eyed blonde. Unlike Shari, Debra was only a child.
Turn right. Last dirt road before you come to stop sign at 2 Knox Road. Go due change and no trespassing sign. Go 50 yards and to the left. Go 10 yards. Debra May is waiting. God forgive us all.
I felt like we were dealing with the same individual.
Investigators now knew they were hunting a serial killer. Based on vast criminal research, authorities believed that the killer would be displaying more compulsive behavior, losing weight, drinking heavily, not shaving regularly, and would be eager to talk about the murder. At the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, scientists were still going over their only piece of hard evidence, Shari's last will and testament. It had been written on lined paper from a legal pad. Forensic document examiner Mickey Dawson believed latent images or indentations from a previous page of the pad might be revealed with the use of an electrostatic detection apparatus.
When I received the letter, took it into the laboratory and opened it up on sterile paper, and with gloves, took the pages apart, looked at each page, did the initial examination intake, and then each sheet would individually go into a humidified box.
Increasing the humidity of the paper would yield a better result from the conductivity of electrical charges. The document was then placed on top of a brass plate and the magnetic field activated. The paper was then brushed with a substance similar to fingerprint powder.
Through the combination of all of this, latent images form.
Dawson's first try yielded what appeared to be a grocery list.
There were some bills to pay, and there was a list of names and telephone numbers left for someone to call in case of an emergency.
Dawson was able to make out what appeared to be a partial telephone number. The first set of numbers, 205, was the area code for Alabama. The next three, 837, was the exchange for Huntsville. But they only had 3 of the last 4 numbers to finish the sequence.
They just plugged the 9 digits in for the 7th and found a telephone number that was a good number.
Finally called this guy in Alabama and said, do you have any relatives in South Carolina? He said, yes, says my mother and father.
The man's father was 50-year-old Ellis Shepard, who lived just 15 miles away from Shari Smith's home. Telephone records indicated that some of the calls to the Smith family after Shari's abduction were made from Shepard's home. Not surprisingly, police wanted to hear what Mr. Shepard had to say. 50-year-old Ellis Shepard was an electrician, and telephone records showed that some of the calls to the Smiths' home after her abduction were made from his phone.
I wasn't worried, but you know, it was a little bit of a shock that they wanted to talk to me.
Shepard had no idea why his son's telephone number was found on Shari Smith's last will and testament. Shepard said he and his wife were on vacation at the time of Shari Smith's abduction, an alibi which checked out.
At Beach Festival Road.
Then police played a recording of the killer's voice.
I said, dirty son of a bitch, because I knew it was him. And they said, what? And I said, that's Larry Gene Bell. And then, of course, they got very excited because, you know, they knew then that they had their person.
Larry Gene Bell. He worked for Ellis doing electrical wiring. Bell was house-sitting for the Shepards during the 6 weeks they had been away on vacation.
I'd left Bell a lot of phone numbers that he may need to call in my absence while we were on our trip.
Those pages were turned over to investigators. A transparency of the Shepards' original note was superimposed over Shari's last will and testament. The Shepards' note matched the indentations on Shari's letter, proving that Shari used the piece of paper directly underneath. The Shepards also said that when Bell picked them up at the airport, all he wanted to talk about was the kidnapping and murder of the Smith girl. Bell had lost weight, was unshaven, and seemed highly agitated. This is the police video taken inside the Shepards' home. Investigators found 6 blonde hairs in the bathroom that were microscopically similar to Shari's hair. The commemorative duck stamp used to mail her last will and testament matched a sheet of stamps in Ellis Shepard's desk drawer.
My silent crayons, food for thought.
Bell was arrested the following morning.
He just seemed to be shocked that law enforcement now had centered in on him.
As the FBI had predicted, Bell had been involved in various sexual incidents since childhood.
He had been in trouble for making obscene telephone calls and at one point even attempting to kidnap a young co-ed from the University of South Carolina.
When questioned, Bell denied any involvement in the murders of Shari Smith and Debra Helmick.
The only thing he wanted to say over and over was that this Larry Gene Bell didn't do it. It's the bad Larry Gene Bell.
Larry Gene Bell stood trial for the murder of Shari Smith in January 1986.
In my closing argument, I told the jury, Shari Smith had the fortitude and the courage to write out her last will and testament. And I put the pen that we took from the shepherd's house in front of the jury. I said, now each one of you, don't you have the courage to sign your name on a death penalty verdict? Ooh, it was electrifying.
The jury needed only 47 minutes to return the verdict of guilty of kidnapping and first-degree murder. Larry Gene Bell was sentenced to death by electrocution.
That was the only punishment for him, and probably, this is horrible to say, too good of a punishment for him.
He was tried separately for the kidnapping and murder of Debra Helmick. That jury returned the same verdict. 10 years after his trial, Larry Gene Bell became the last man to die in South Carolina's electric chair.
Without that letter, and without the ability to bring up things on that page that you couldn't see with the naked eye, it would have been even longer before we would have gotten Larry Gene Bell.
That piece of paper, that indented writing, is what made the case and what sealed his fate. He ultimately signed his death warrant.
Bob Smith remains a chaplain for the sheriff's department. His wife Hilda recently authored a book, The Rose of Shari, to honor their daughter's memory. Both are convinced, as Shari predicted in her last will and testament, some good has come out of their monumental loss.
That letter has been more closure to me than any kind of closure that the courts could do for me. Just the fact that she knew where she was going and she had that kind of faith.